welcome to this week's webinar. My name is Alicia, and today we're going to talk about item setup and organization. So I was preparing for our meeting today, and I just wanted to kind of talk about everything because there's so much. But I do realize a lot of clients come to us and maybe they've set up items incorrectly. Over time, the QuickBooks Enterprise item list has had some flexibility, and that flexibility has kind of come and gone, and in 24 we'll kind of talk about that. But there's item types that are available. I also have clients that come from other softwares and they're like, oh yeah, we don't use items. And so sometimes having the conversation of why do we need to use items? If I'm using certain transactions, oh, I have to use items. So we're going to talk more about that. What's the recommended structure for my item list? So it's this really cool other feature that's available in Enterprise now, which is categories. And so I get a lot of questions of, do I do parent sub-relationships in my item list, or do I do categories, or do I do both? So hopefully today we'll have enough time to really kind of look at that, look at some of the differences, but I'm always here if anyone wants to kind of dive in deeper, specific to your company, and helping y'all with that. And then how does this change my report? So I have had a lot of success with parent sub relationships and or categories. And so I want to make sure that everyone understands, when we do parent sub relationships or categories, what does that change? How's that going to change my view? So you're not just going into QuickBooks and doing this in your live environment, but you are actually looking at kind of a sandbox or an example, and then we are able to really kind of put it into action, right? Test it, vet it. That's kind of what we say to our clients on our side when we're doing design. I have the questions open. If anyone wants to ask any questions throughout this, please feel free to message in there. I will do my very, very best to keep up with everything. And so hopefully, if I see a question come through, if I don't answer it already, then I'll be able to kind of look at that questions. Okay, so looking at our item types. So again, I am in QuickBooks Enterprise 24. I'm just going to go to list and item list. This is a sample file for advanced inventory, and we're just going to use our sample pool company file here. But we can create items once we're in the item list here by clicking and doing new. We can also edit multiple items. I don't know if anyone's ever used this or shown anyone this, but just a little secret here. So you can use the edit multiple feature, go filter on unsaved, change it to inventory parts on unsaved. And this could be something that you could kind of tab through and set up items. And I think it's really cool. So if you've never seen that before, hopefully that is not new to people, but if it is, that is a really cool option instead of having to do create new. So going back to our items and new, you can also do Control N from the item list. This is our item types that are available inside of QuickBooks Enterprise. So we've got service items, inventory parts, and inventory assemblies, non-inventory part, other charge, subtotal, group, discount, and payment. So if you want to go set up a kit, for example, that is not one of the item types that are available. So what we would do is we would kind of talk through with you, okay, well, what kind of kit do we need? What kind of reporting do we need? But each one of these item types does something different inside the system. And that's the reason why it's really important to know which item type we are going to use and set up, and why, like what we want from the system for it, right? So service items, and if I go click on this, you can see a brief description next to each of the service item types. If you read that and you're still unclear, then hopefully these next couple of things will help identify which type you should use. So service items, I think, are really good, especially if you're doing things like tracking time, and you want to even do like construction industry, T&E, invoicing, those things. Service items are really good for that. But let's talk about inventory parts and assemblies. A lot of times these are things that people kind of set up incorrectly. I did recently have a client, set up non-inventory parts, but was really looking for like profitability of the items that they were selling. And so inventory parts and inventory assembly items, these are the only two items that QuickBooks tracks inventory related activity, okay? So on either one of these parts, I'm gonna find them in my inventory valuation summary. I'm also gonna be able to see, transfers on the assemblies. That's really more for manufacturers, right? So I have a bill of materials that I can populate and put in, and I can go through a full-blown manufacturing process. I have a question real fast that we have billable service items for employee tracking time used to bill our customers. Can we delete them if the employee is termed? That is a wonderful question. Sorry guys that I stopped. I wanted to make sure I saw this come through. So can you delete an item? This is really for any kind of transaction. So I'm highlighting the service item. It says Karen delete. So we'll just say that Karen was an employee and she's no longer with us. We've made it inactive. And so we see right here, it says include inactive. It's got the X next to it. If I have used this item at any transaction, on any transaction in the company file, I can only inactivate the item. I cannot delete it, okay? So this is where we would encourage, when we set up our item list, the item list should be the items for our business. It really shouldn't be very specific, like Karen, right? Instead of maybe Karen, it could be a kind of type of employee. Maybe it's a supervisor. Maybe it is, tier 1 support. So those are some things that we would, recommend instead of basically trying to put someone's name in a particular item, okay? So going back a little bit to our inventory parts and assemblies, those are for tracking inventory. Service items, those are really good for, again, doing things with kind of, consulting, construction, billable labor, those things. An inventory part, that is definitely, I'm going to go ahead and group those with like other charges as well. These items, right, they have the ability and the default to just hit one GL account here. if I'm purchasing something for job costing, right, or projects, and we want to be able to see and assign expenses to a specific customer, you can see right here that I have this box available, and I can then have a double-sided item. I can show the expense when I purchase it, or cost of goods sold, and then I can also show the sell side, okay? So making sure that we're understanding these types, so non-inventory parts, other charges, service items, they all have this ability. And then if I'm a manufacturer, I also have the ability to select this, and I can put it as an assembly bill of material component. And I'm just going to show that really fast. So we see right here, we've got a labor item, utility, grease, right? And so if I double click on those, we can see that this labor item was marked as this service that's used in an assembly. Okay, so now I have a double-sided item. All right, I've got a few questions. So one question is asking about to create construction estimate, will you use inventory assembly? So inventory assembly, those are things that I'm going to give an example. Okay, so I have all of these parts or service. I take all of these things and I combine them to make a different item, right? An item that I make. I've numbered it 1000 MC, but it takes all of these different components here and service items together to make an 1000 MC. So a manufacturer of, trailers or race cars or coffee even, right? Cookies, bakers. I've got all kinds of different manufacturers, and this is what they are using. So sometimes in construction, you're not really needing an assembly item. You could also use a group. So a lot of people would, they want to know what's the difference between an assembly item and a group. And so this is a really good question to talk about this. So we see that this assembly item, I'm going to go back to this, it has our GL accounts, cost of goods sold, income, asset, right? So it has our GL accounts. And all of these components, they get deducted when I build this item, and they get added to the 1000 MC item quantity and dollars and all those things, right? In a group item, what we see is this group item does not have GL accounts. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. A group item does not have GL accounts, general ledger accounts. It does not hit any chart of accounts. So the reason why this is important is because I cannot run a report in QuickBooks on option A, which is a group item. Okay, so if I go to an estimate and I put a group item on there, it does not show on reports. I cannot report on that. What I can see is all of these items. These are all other items that are in my item list that I add to a group. So the benefit of a group is, so maybe I don't have the build process, right? Maybe I'm not really manufacturing anything, and the only thing I want my customer to see is that they've selected option A, and then all of the components underneath it. I need, for internal purposes, that those items are going to hit the general ledger, not actually option A, okay? So I do want to show you an example. I'm going to go right here, put that assembly, say okay. And so when we go into our home page, one of the big things that I want to point out is that one of my bullets was, why do I even want to use an item, right? If you are doing any sales activity in QuickBooks Desktop, you need to create an invoice and send it to a customer. You need to set up an item list because you cannot have a general ledger or chart of accounts in the body of an invoice. It's all based off of items. So if I create an estimate, the very first thing that I have to do is I have to select an item, okay? So let's go in and select our option A and show you how option A, when I go to record this, right, it automatically populates all of the individual items that are in the group. And looking at the journal entry, I'll just do this. You can see the accounts, right, and the items. And so option A is not on here, okay? It's just those items that we set up. So great question. We really do not have to use, there's a lot that we could talk about for the construction estimates and the items to use, and sometimes it does depend on the company. Okay, if we create a custom field for item and category prior to QuickBooks adding the category, how do we clear and repurpose the custom field? That's a very, very specific one. There's could be a lot of if this involved in that, or some different scenarios. So would love to talk to you directly about it with how you are using your QuickBooks file. But I will go just talk about an item list, right, and the custom fields. So anytime you set up an item, and again, this is a sample file, so it's got a lot of different examples, but a custom field here, when we set those up, we can also have them required on transactions. And so the purpose of using a custom field at the item level is to get additional report information based off of the item that we are recording in our transaction, okay? So for this item that's on our screen, for example, right, and the custom fields we've set up, needing to know specific style and color, that's at the transaction. That allows so that we do not have to set up 25 different varieties of the same item type. We can use a custom field to identify the style, the color, the size, right? So those are some things that you could potentially use. Now, categories and kind of the organizational structure of the item list, I definitely want to spend some time on that. I've got about 8 minutes left. I told you guys I could talk on this forever, but if we are using estimates, sales orders, or invoices, you've got to have an item that is set up so that you can record the transaction, and it is also going to help you run reports, right? So sales by item summary. I can see my gross margin on my inventory parts and assemblies here. This is an amazing report as a business owner to know how much you are making on your items. If you aren't using this, this is one reason why you want to make sure your items are set up properly so you can get information out of the system that you may not get if you have it set up wrong, okay? So let's go talk about the structure, the organization. So if we can see, pumps is a header, and then we have all the different categories underneath it, right? Or parent-sub relationship, pumps. We've got screws here, right? We've got the different variety of the SKUs. And so what I want to be able to show is that this, when I am looking at reports, right, instead of having things just at a flat list, like springs and stickers, and there's no parent-sub relationship, right? These pumps as a header and having those sub-components sub-items of pumps underneath it, when I go to a report, I am going to see a total for pumps. Example, my inventory valuation summary. I'm going to go reports, inventory valuation summary. This is my standard. Now categories are turned on. I haven't moved anything to categories yet. So I want you to be able to see this before I make a change. So if we look, I've got pull covers. I've got total pull covers, 77, and a value, right? Everything else is in a flat view. And so I can just see individually. I have a customer that does steel. And they've got different types of steel. They've got different, strengths and all these things, right? And they have 5,000 items on their item list, and they're all flat. And they can't really see different, categories that they may want, aluminum, right? So if you put the parent and the subs underneath it, it's automatically giving this information to you. It also can help potentially with cycle counts, right? Well, categories is an alternative to it's an alternative and or an addition to using relationship. So what I wanted to do is I want to add a new category. Let's just say that we're going to put, brand A, right? Brand A, maybe I want different brands, not really in my structure of my item list, but maybe just within my reports, I want to see different brands, right? And so that's where I can select several different things. I can then move these to a different brand or a different category and save it, okay? And now when I do that, now I go back to my inventory evaluation, and what I see is I've got my brand A, and I have a total for that entire brand. You can still, with categories, have parent-sub relationships. If I was to move these pull covers and put those into the brand, I would still be able to see, right, my pull covers total and my total for brand A. So I hope that that helps a little bit to show the organization of the item list and really the benefit of ensuring that this has been structured properly, that it can give you so much more information and data just by ensuring that it has been structured properly, okay? When I go back to look at my sales by item summary, I see the same thing here, right? So I see my brand, and I've got a total by the brand. Now this is a sample file all out in 2029 here, but basically, right, giving you an idea that the structure and the organization that I put in my item list will benefit me on my report, even managing for purchasing, cycle counts, all of it, right? You can also, on your physical inventory reports, you can filter, you can sort, you can do all kinds of different things, but your categories show up here, okay? So item list, those item types, you can't set up your own. You have to use what is in the system. The types are very important based off of what we're trying to get out of the system. Okay. I know I'm really close to time. I have one more. Okay. So I think there's one on template. If you need assistance with templates because it's not showing, you may just need to identify if it's in the screen. Really fast here. If it's on the screen, you can always move this. If it's because we have a whole bunch of stuff, maybe see if there's something that we can take off if we're printing it, okay? That may help. Hopefully that helps answer that question. But our item organization is very, very important. I want to ensure that I remind everyone. So thanks for joining me today, trying to get y'all out on time. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining. Look forward to our next webinar.